Hello everyone, and welcome to the third and final part of our series where we learn how to read and understand SIDS and stars. In the previous two videos we learned how to utilize departure and arrival charts, and today we'll have a look at approach charts, which are meant to guide a pilot from the final waypoint of the star all the way to the runway. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button if you've enjoyed this tutorial series so far. That way it can reach a lot more people who might take interest in this subject as well. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. We are going to start right where we ended the last video, which is at the Kirky waypoint. If you recall, that was the final waypoint of the arrival that we explained, and this is also the initial fix of the approach that we are going to use as an example today. I'm going to assume that all of you who are watching this video have indeed watched the previous part as well. That way I can skip over some information that we've already explained prior, just for the sake of time. So let's have a gander then. All the way at the top you'll see the type of approach that you are going to fly. In this case an ILS or localizer approach Zulu for runway 25 left. The reason why they put a letter Y or Zulu after the type of approach is because you can have several different ILS approaches for the same runway. Below that we have a bunch of frequencies for when you fly online. This can be a handy reference to know who exactly to contact. And below that we have some info regarding the actual ILS system. To the left you have the ILS frequency and also the approach course. Next to that we have the altitudes above sea level and above ground level, between brackets, at which you need to be at the outer marker. Now for those of you unaware, the outer, middle and inner markers are beacons located on the ground that send out a signal that the aircraft only receives when you fly straight over the beacon, which causes a light to be illuminated in the cockpit, letting you know that you've reached said beacon. They were mostly important back in the day when GPS didn't exist and you had to navigate only via ground-based navigation aids. So although these beacons could be considered obsolete nowadays, maybe, they are still in use in some places and are still mentioned on charts like this one for some extra info, so the more you know. Moving on, we have the different categories of ILS that you can use this chart for. A higher category means higher accuracy basically, and as you can see, this ILS approach can be used all the way to category 3, which is only really used when visibility is practically zero and aircraft have to do auto lands. Next to that we have the airport elevation and also the runway elevation, which might differ slightly. Up next we have a description of what you must do in case you have to execute a go-around, both for normal operations and for when you lose communications with ATC for whatever reason. You can also find a visual representation of the go-around procedure on the chart itself, but it only gives you a very rough idea. This little rectangle has some basic info about the approach, like the unit of the barometric pressure and also things like transition altitude / level. Then we have the important part of the chart, which is the route itself. Right in the middle we have the ILS frequency once again, with the course and also a Morse code identifier, which would allow you to verify if you have the right frequency tuned in your radio. This box here contains some info about speed restrictions, but this is something that is very airport specific once again, so you won't find this on all charts. The same goes for this little box as well. Unlike SIDS and stars, approach charts also have a dedicated section with a side view of the final phase of the approach to give you info about your vertical profile. Here you can see your final altitude before you intercept the glide slope, and it also says mandatory, which means you have to be at that altitude at that distance. These gray areas are your minimum altitudes for each portion of the approach, and these arrow symbols represent the different minimum altitudes for different categories of ILS approaches. So at one of these points, depending on your category that is in use, you have to be visual with the runway, or else you have to execute a missed approach or go around, as described earlier. This here is a table which contains some vertical speeds according to your ground speed, which can be used for when the glide slope doesn't work. And to the right of that you have a bit of info regarding the lighting system that is installed at the runway you are landing on. Below that you have all the precise minimum altitudes which I just mentioned for each ILS category. The more accurate an ILS system is, the lower you can fly before you have to be visual with the runway. You have the altitudes above sea level, and in between brackets is the height above ground level as well. Finally, below that you have so-called RVR distances, which stands for runway visual range, which, if I remember correctly, is the distance at which you can see the runway or runway lights, and this is a factor in deciding the category of ILS that you want to utilize. And that covers pretty much all the important information you can derive from an approach chart like this. Of course, there's a bunch more information on here, like some extra nav aids like VORs and such, but what we just covered are the things that you will have to use every time you do an approach, whereas the rest is just there for extra references basically. I hope you guys have enjoyed this short series and that you found it useful. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. It would support my channel a lot and would help to spread the knowledge to other eager flight simmers. Also, do let me know down below in the comment section if you would like to see more content about these charts. We could possibly still do a video about where you can find charts on the internet and things like that, and maybe a video covering ground charts as well, but I would love to know if you guys are actually interested in that. If that's the case, then either the like button or comment section are the best places to let me know. For now, happy landings to all of you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.